Yeah. Hey, look, we're live.
We're live.
All right, here we go. Hang on, guys. Hang on. All right.
Hello, everyone. This is the Energy Reality podcast. And today, Tammy Nemeth is having some technical issues, so she'll be with us a bit later. But I've got Stu Turley and David Blackmon with me here. How are you guys? How's August treating you?
Hot. Oh my God, it's hot in
Amazing.
North Texas. Man, it's 105 yesterday.
It's never happened before, I'm sure.
Never, ever.
I'll tell you, I had a dry run for a disaster Saturday. Mini tornado came ripping through. We lost power, and all my neighbors are all screaming, going, "We lost power!" And I'm skipping around, going, "I'm testing my system, I'm testing my generators. I'm over here Scooby Dooing around, going, I like me a good disaster to make sure I'm ready for it."
So, how's the system? Is it working?
Works great.
Excellent.
So you gotta love a good disaster.
Today we're going to do something we have never ever done before on this show or anywhere else. We're going to talk about electric vehicles and how they have been faring lately. David.
Well, it's a deteriorating situation in the United States for electric vehicles. And we've talked about this in the past. They're just not sustainable business models without steadily increasing subsidies. And we enacted the Inflation Reduction Act 2 years ago that had a beefed up subsidy in it, which is, of course, just a down payment on the multi-trillion-dollar cost of the overall Green New Deal. And so I think the Democrats had anticipated having a supplemental Inflation Reduction Act enacted by now. That hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. We are adding $1 trillion to the federal debt every 100 days now in the United States. So the thought that we're going to do another multi-trillion-dollar subsidy bill for electric vehicles and other green energy is just a pipe dream that's never going to happen. That leaves the electric vehicle segment in the United States teetering on the brink of what would be not extinction, but just a permanent irrelevance in the overall U.S. vehicle market. They have increased their share of vehicle sales here in the United States, but it's still in single digits. It's not likely to rise above single digits anytime soon. And so what's ultimately going to be the outcome of all of this is that all these mandates and targets that have been put in place by this administration are going to start being extended further out into the future and eventually forgotten about entirely as the legacy automakers like Ford and GM regroup and focus more on hybrid cars and their standard ICE vehicles, the heavy SUVs that people actually want to buy. And this is just going to end up being the latest in a long line of failed experiments of trying to bring the electric vehicle business in the United States up to societal scale. This has been happening off and on for 140 years, and it's nothing new, and the outcome was entirely predictable.
Yeah, as this usually is. Can you hear us, Tammy?
I can hear you now.
There's Tammy. Yes. All right.
Sorry.
Hey, we're getting your crickets. It's awesome. We've never had crickets on the show before.
I know, and the bad part is they're in the house.
Oh, no.
That's not good.
That's not good.
That's not good.
Well, Tammy, you can eat crickets, so it's a good thing they're a good source of protein.
Yeah, but
Yes.
you have to catch them first.
And you have
That's
to be
right.
happy. You have to be happy eating the cricket.
Maybe they'll start giving advice like Jiminy Cricket.
That's
Good
like
morning,
the
Robert.
scenario. Morning, Robert.
Hey, well, we get ready for the Inflation Reduction Act. I just did a Grok check on it, and it is amazing. It said that Some reports hilariously mention only 8 chargers for billions spent, but that might be an oversimplification or misrepresentation. I've actually got a picture of the Biden administration and trying to figure out what they're going to do for the EV. So hang on. Let's take a look at this. This is the Biden administration as they're taking a look and taking care of the workers in Detroit. Zoom. Now, here's the rest of the American public sitting here looking around going, all right, we're on a plane going nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but car makers, as David said, are already starting to wake up. Tammy, in Europe, EV sales are declining. It's not just a slowdown in demand, it's a decline. Do you think anybody in Canada or the US is watching this and possibly taking notes?
No, I don't think so. Not at all in Canada. I mean, they're throwing so much government money into all of the sort of EV subsidization of the batteries and constructing the vehicles. And like the IRA, they claim to be building all of these chargers. And it's kind of funny because we did this road trip and we're going through these different urban areas, and there'll be, chargers at a mall or something like that. And there'll be one car charging.
Yeah.
Or
Well, that's
something.
more than I see at my local mall. There's a
Right.
charging station with, I think, 6 chargers. Never seen a car there. I don't go every day, so maybe at some point somebody charges there. But every time I pass that station, not a single car.
Well, I think part of the problem is we were talking to some friends, and they were saying that in the different cities, the grid can't handle the number of home chargers that would be required for having EVs. And so there's a limit of, I think it's a maximum of 3 EVs in a neighborhood. So like seriously. So people are saying, well, maybe I should, if I put in a charger, I can make sure that my neighbor doesn't get one, because there's only like three allowed in a neighborhood. So
You're saving
okay,
your neighbors the trouble of buying an EV and building a charger.
My goodness.
right. So I mean, sometimes there'll be subsidies to put in the home chargers, but usually people have to pay for it, and it's about 20,000 Canadian dollars to put in a home charger, because they have to change how they hook it up and all these different kinds of things. So I'm really not sure they've thought this through. Like what? So everybody's supposed to charge at the big local charging facility and what? Catch an Uber home? I don't quite
Wait.
understand.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Weren't EVs really great because you can just come home with the EV and then plug it into
Right.
the normal socket?
Yeah.
Supposedly. And then they're
Yep.
supposed to be able to extract energy from it when they need. Right?
Yeah, and feed it back. So
Yeah.
what's up with that? So apparently this wasn't true.
Don't know. But okay, so let's think this through. Let's say you have your car plugged in, but there's a case of Dunkelflaute, right? So the wind turbines aren't turning and there's no energy being produced. So they have to draw from your car. And then you're thinking, I'm going to get into my car in the morning. It's dead.
And it's empty. Yeah.
It's empty. So how are you supposed to get to work? Or if you're at work charging and they need your car to power your computer at work or something, and
Yeah,
it's
and
not-
the big
Yeah,
problem in the areas where there have been a lot of EV sales in California and in some metro areas in the Northeast, the big problem there is people having to wait in line for hours at these public charging stations because so many people are pulling up to these chargers and trying to get a 100% charge in their battery when they're only designed to do about 75 to 80% charge. And so it takes you 15 minutes to get to 75%, but it might take you an hour to get to 100% on these chargers. They're not designed to do that. And so that's a huge problem. And now there was a story over the weekend of, oh man, I forget what city it was now, enacting a local ordinance, fining people if they sit at the charger too long. So that's where we're going with that.
That's so
All
funny.
those charger hogs.
The charger
Yeah,
hogs.
charger hogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but there's also I just sent this story around. I can't remember if I sent it earlier, but so if the alternative is that there's public EVs that will come, they're self-driving and they will come and pick you up and whatever. In San Francisco, there's a case of the Waymo self-driving autonomous EVs that go to this parking lot and are keeping everybody awake because they're beeping and their lights are flashing and they're driving around in circles. The autonomous self-driving vehicles are just behaving very erratically in the middle of the night, like at 4 in the morning. And it's driving the people crazy. And the police show up to fine whoever's making the disturbance. But there's nobody to fine because the EVs, there's no one driving the EVs. They're just in
This is a
circles
literal
honking.
absurdity.
There's way too much in government control, being able to be locked into the car. Tucker Carlson has it right when he has a 1965 pickup that has no electronics on it. The phone, the one that just got me was a lady with a Toyota, a brand new Toyota. When you have everything on your app and the amount of government information from the new cars, not necessarily just an EV, but the amount of intrusion that comes in from the government, as well as listening to your car, and the availability is frightening. I am going to a 1943 Willys 4-wheel drive car. I want no electronics.
Robert
Yeah.
De Domenico makes a great point here. I've been in submarine nuclear propulsion, commercial nuclear power for 4 decades, and it's obvious that nothing about these EV mandates and subsidies has been thought through. And that's actually 100% correct. I interviewed Dr. Angela Wilkinson, who's the CEO of the World Energy Council recently, and her theme throughout that interview was that the biggest problem in all of this is that there's no systems thinking being applied to any of this. The IRA was just this disjointed collection of subsidies and tax breaks that didn't have any real overarching plan in mind for them except to flood a bunch of money into these green energy solutions. And so what you're getting is all this ramping up of investments in various aspects of an energy transition without any overarching plan to integrate all of it. And so you end up with building, all these electric vehicles without the chargers and with inadequate battery technology. And so it doesn't work, and people get pissed off about it and stop buying the products, and it fails. And so it's all going to fail because there's no overarching plan. And my response to that, of course, was, well, I live in the United States where there's simply no ability for the central government to engage in any sort of systems thinking, overarching plan to all this. Those kinds of plans get developed in communist countries. And, with the Soviet Union's 5-year plans and China's 50-year plans and all that kind of stuff, we don't have the capability of doing that in the United States. I know the EU is trying to do that in Europe as the overarching government authority, but I sense it's really failing there too, right?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's because the tools are let's have more subsidies and let's mandate EVs in this case.
Yeah.
Because there's no organic way this is going to happen. And it's not even happening with the subsidies and with the mandates.
Well, it's because if you think of how the EU issues, they issue commands, they issue directives. Like it's a directive from the EU.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things, and I think that Canada does this as well. It's like, we're telling you, this is what we want, make it so. And they're just assuming you can wave a magic wand and boom, everything will be just materialize out of nowhere. And, the thing is, David, I would say they believe they're using system thinking. They believe that they've constructed this grand plan, and this is the system, all the things that are required. And I hear this all the time from environmental groups, is that the oil and gas industry and the critics are slowing it down. We're slowing it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, you got to
And
have a boogeyman to blame it on. Right?
How?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're pointing out the flaws in it. And if only we would shut up, it would all just fall into place.
They
And people
seriously
would
believe this.
they seriously believe that we're
Oh yeah.
stopping people from doing their part. And
Right.
they believe that. It's crazy.
We're making a difference.
Yeah, and then they after they find their boogeyman and blame the boogeyman, then they double down on the stupid policy that failed to begin with, and it fails even worse.
I actually saw something on X. I think you posted it, or somebody else from Substack, that it's the oil industry that's paying to all the climate skeptics and all the critics. No, we just have the eyes to see and the brains to process what we see. It's
Man,
amazing.
I
There are still
wish
people who believe it would have been all great if we just shut up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I kind of wish they were paying us. I could use the income. I mean, I really could use the income, but
At least we would
that's not
have
happening.
some views.
But then we'd be eating Tammy's crickets.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Klaus Schwab
Why? We
wants
would
us
be
to do.
rich. The oil industry is supposed to be generous to its shills. At least that's what people say.
That's what they say.
That's what I hear.
No proof of that, but hey.
There is no proof of that in my checking account. No.
It's amazing that we have, with the Democrat convention going on this week. Speaking of the Inflation Reduction Act, or as Dan Bongino calls it, the Porculus Bill, we have the Democrat convention going on, and there is a guy on X that I find very humorous. He has geofenced phones that are there. There are over 100,000 Antifa folks in Chicago. And by being defined by Antifa, it means that you've been to 3 or more Antifa events protesting for the Democrats.
Wow.
How do you protest for whatever?
Yeah, so they've also got bricks. So instead of a welcome bag to the convention, they've got bags of bricks for people then to throw at police. I'm serious. We are going to have so much fun watching the Democrat convention. I don't think that we're going to see the Inflation Reduction Act survive. I mean, excuse me, the Kamala Harris survive. I personally think she's going to get pulled, but that's my opinion. I could be 100% wrong.
Robert has another good point there. I can't put it up. He's got two, actually. Yeah, that one.
Oops.
Without exception, government makes more money on oil than oil companies by a factor of 5. Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
is
but
it?
it also spends a lot more than oil companies, because they try to stay within some reasonable limits of spending versus income, while the government doesn't care.
Right.
Well, at least the US government, the EU governments, although they're starting to care because they're starting to run out of money, so they're phasing out EV subsidies.
But isn't it like California with losing Chevron's tax? They spent $14 billion or whatever the number was in federal and state taxes. A state has now lost that revenue stream as they leave California. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. The average profit margin at a gas station on a gallon of gasoline is a penny or two, 1 or 2 cents. That's what they make. And, they all make their money on you getting out of your car, starting to fill up your tank, going in there and paying $2.49 for a Diet Coke that cost them 3 cents to provide to you. Right. That's where they're making their money, folks. They're not making it on the gasoline. But the state tax in California on a gallon of gasoline is $1.18 per gallon. Okay. And that doesn't include the climate change tax that the state imposes, and the pollution reduction fee that the state imposes, and all the other fees that they impose. I mean, the state of California probably makes $2 a gallon on every gallon of gas sold in the state. So Robert makes a great point.
And they just asked refiners to stockpile gasoline and diesel.
which
to
costs
reduce
money.
the chances of profiteering. How arrogant exactly are these people? And that's a rhetorical question.
The one that gets me also is the new Kamala plan on how to attack price increases. Was basically saying they're going to go after profiteering and everything else. And this was communism like at 300%. I'm like going, has anybody read an economics 101 course in this administration?
No.
Well, it's like another example of repeating the mistakes of the 1970s.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
everything that they're doing from when the whole supposed energy crisis happened with the Russian attack on Ukraine. Suddenly, they just went into their bag of tricks from the past and pulled out the worst things from the 1970s. And now we have probably stagflation or whatever. And the only thing, apparently in Canada, the only thing that's stopping a recession right now is all the immigrants that they're bringing into the country. That's the narrative.
Tammy, I want to ask you about the potential rail job strike, the rail strike, because they transport almost 100,000 barrels per day or more on rail out of Canada, and we need those barrels of oil. So I'm like, this is a big deal.
They do this, I swear, almost every year. Right when it's harvest time and they need to get the grain to port, suddenly there's port strikes. Suddenly there's rail strikes because a lot of the food production in Canada is from landlocked areas. So it's not like they can just, they could use trucks, but I mean, there's so much grain and whatever. So the target is really harvest right now. And my understanding is that the rail strike is applying mostly to the ports. So they're stopping container ships from coming in. They're stopping the barges from coming to load up and stuff like that. And it's a slow incremental stoppage, I guess. I don't know. But I swear, every year they do this and out in the West, they're like, just try to screw the farmers. So, but it's bigger than that, right? Because they know that they have to get it out. And they can use that as leverage for whatever that they're demanding. And every year there's a new demand. But I don't know if they're stopping the whole line or if it's just certain segments. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect the oil shipments because there is a lot that goes south.
From Robert, for our podcast listeners, Robert asked the question or makes a comment. In New Jersey, the 10.5 cent motor fuel tax, the 38 cent petroleum produce gross receipts tax, and the 18.4 cent federal gas tax comes to 67 cents per gallon of tax on 320 gas. It would only cost $2.50 without the tax. And you know what's sad is the roads still suck.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's all supposed to go to fixing the roads, right? And they still.
Yeah, well, I guess they have to fund transition programs.
Right. Yeah. And the truth is, all those taxes, they don't go into any designated funds within these state governments. They go into the general fund and they just get spent however the politicians want to spend them.
This is just okay.
Boy, Robert's on a roll. Whatever coffee you're on, Robert, I would love some of that. Yeah. I would love to have a cup of your coffee, whatever you're on.
It's high test.
I'd like to add something about the taxes on fuel because in Canada there's a group called the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and every year they do an annual report of all the taxes that are on fuel. Because it affects everybody when you're a mom and you're going to fill up your vehicle to drive your kids around to the various activities, or you're going camping. And so they have a really great breakdown of all the fuel charges by province, because every province in Canada, like the United States, every state has its own set of taxes. But it's it's a crazy amount, almost half, I think over half of the price at the pump is taxes of some kind. And then
crazy.
And then what Ottawa does, what the federal government does, is they charge a tax on top of all the taxes. It's like our carbon tax, They charge the goods and services tax, or GST, on top of all the taxes, on the carbon tax. So it's a
How
double.
patient are Canadians?
Clearly too patient. I don't know.
Too patient. Yes, overly patient.
Overly
Wow.
patient.
Yeah, but then you can't just take to the streets, really.
Well, they tried that, and then they closed bank accounts.
Yeah.
Robert says, my coffee contains reality, which is a rare ingredient in government policy.
Sort us
Yes,
out,
it
Robert.
is.
Best ingredient in coffee there is. Shall we go to the headlines?
Time for headlines.
Yeah.
There we go. And I believe Tammy found a jewel of a, this is for attorneys running around after disasters. It's evdisasters.com, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a brilliant site. I love it. I think
Yeah.
it's mostly American stories and whatnot, but of course extremely relevant. And they have all the different disaster stories, but they choose the best ones. So I think like every week they have one key story, and then they have feature ones, and it's a really useful resource if you want to see some of the sort of
Yeah.
EV madness and disasters. And I said to David, here's a great source for regular absurdities.
Yeah, I've got that one bookmarked now.
All right, let's go to the next one here, Tammy.
Oh, right. So these are ones that I had kind of been sending around for the past few weeks. And it was kind of interesting that there's this school district returned to diesel because they tried to convert the bus fleet to EVs, and it was just a complete disaster. And then there's other, I think it was Baltimore. Those weren't school buses, but they were the city buses where they bought like 100 of them. And the person responsible for them said, we had no idea there would be such constant breakdowns
Yeah.
and really expensive breakdowns. And if in the summertime we couldn't have the air conditioning on in the bus in Baltimore, where it's super hot and humid, and because otherwise the batteries would drain super fast, so they wouldn't be able to complete their routes. So it's one of these things that we've been talking about for a long time, is like, okay, the reality of these things is this, this, and this. And it's like all the planners are like, no, everything will be good. It's not like that. But it is.
And the other thing to emphasize about those electric buses, the city buses cost about $500,000 each. Okay.
Yeah.
Whereas a diesel powered bus costs you between $150,000 and $200,000. So you're paying an exorbitant upfront cost only to incur exorbitantly higher maintenance costs on top of that. So, yeah.
But they were supposed to be low maintenance.
Right.
Electric
Exactly.
vehicles.
Yeah. I mean, that's how they're advertised.
Because of fewer moving parts.
Right.
What's happening and why is it happening?
Good question.
Well, we don't know because the maker of the buses is in bankruptcy and is no longer.
Oh, that's that company. Okay. Right. I remember
that. It's like almost all of those companies are bankrupt or in receivership or whatever. And
and they sell so well.
And then the second, I don't think that was mine. The Mercedes.
Yeah, the Mercedes.
Oh, that wasn't yours?
I don't think
That's
so.
a great story, though.
It's a great story.
Yes.
Not a great story. 21 people were injured.
Well, it's not a great story.
Okay, maybe not a
mind.
great story. That wasn't so nice. But like
Never
the
mind.
Mercedes blew up, burst into flames.
Oh, poor thing. These are Irina's, I think.
These are mine, yeah. And there's a third one round the corner. So how booming electricity demand is stalling efforts to retire coal and gas. How surprised are we?
Shocking.
Shocking.
So apparently US demand for electricity, which has been flat for years, if not a decade or more, is suddenly booming because data centers and artificial intelligence, which you use, and I don't, so my conscience is clear. But in any case, electricity demand and of course extreme weather is driving greater demand for heating in winter and air conditioning in summer, blah. So electricity demand is on the rise. But so is wind and solar. Apparently, shockingly, as David said, this is not enough. And this growth in demand is delaying the retirement of coal and gas plants.
Yeah.
It's a great revelation by the Wall Street Journal.
And
Tammy-
here I just want to repeat my prediction that I started making towards the end of last year, that by the end of next year, 2025, we're going to start seeing regional grid managers in the United States talking about the need to permit and build additional coal-fired power plants.
Yeah, probably.
That is coming. It's coming before the end of next year. Y'all bookmark this and tell me I'm wrong.
It's either that or destroy demand.
Yeah.
By any
I'm going to
means
tell you you're
possible.
wrong just because you need to be set back a little bit as I'm
Okay,
teasing.
all right.
I'm teasing.
Humility. I need humility. Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing.
I think it'll be a combination of demand destruction they're going to try, and also needing to build the reliable power. So, yeah, I don't know how they're going to square that circle, because, as we all know, wind and solar aren't reliable and whatnot.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
somebody asked a question earlier about this
SRB. Yeah.
that I've seen an older study, but I'd want to look at it again now that power prices are increasing and you have all these other inputs. But I think if the Chinese one, I think the EROI would be lower just because they control so much of that chain. So I don't know.
For podcast listeners, the question from SRB is for
sorry.
David or Tammy, as far as you know. Has anyone looked at BEVs, battery electric vehicles, in terms of energy return on energy invested, ROI? And as Tammy said, I know there have been several studies on that. I'm not sure if any are actually current now to reflect the higher inflation in prices.
Yeah. Good question. I'll look into it.
Hey, while you're looking at that, Tammy, I got another one that just came across my desk. Energy bills across Britain might be up 9%, reaching an average of 1,714 pounds a year for the typical household. Y'all got electricity over there still?
Good question. I mean, apparently GB Energy, the new state company, is supposed to solve all that. So we'll see.
Sure.
By spending money on more wind turbines.
Yeah. And solar panels covering the fields. So we'll be
that will
starving, but
totally,
hey.
that will totally not become a massive boondoggle. You can count on it.
Yeah.
For sure.
It will work, especially the solar.
Wow.
Meanwhile, clean fuel startups were supposed to be the next big thing. Now they are collapsing. We're talking biofuels, we're talking sustainable aviation fuels, and we're talking hydrogen.
Wow.
Both of those were from the Wall Street Journal, those two stories. They're doing fantastic work over there.
Yeah, but they're doing it reluctantly. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Like this clean fuel startup story. The author keeps reminding us regularly that we need to reduce emissions by using more biofuels, by using more SAFs and more hydrogen to save the planet. But we're failing at that because demand for biofuels is not what it's supposed to be. Demand for hydrogen is not what it's supposed to be. And demand for SAFs is not what it's supposed to be because they're too bloody expensive. And because the companies making them, except the startups, which are just folding, but BP and Shell and the big oil majors that invested heavily. Hey, Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
I don't know what happened. I did nothing. And it flipped. What the heck? I don't know. What did it do?
I love technology.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, big oil is pulling out of all this. It's spending more money on oil and gas rather than biofuels. And Shell even took an impairment of $800 million on a biofuel facility that was supposed to be producing biodiesel and SAFs. for which there is supposed to be massive demand in the future, because governments will be mandating airlines to use these so-called sustainable aviation fuels. It's a glorious story of no planning and no thinking, and just expecting that when you throw enough money at something, it will work just like that.
They've set a directive. Make it so. We should just make it so.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just order it to happen. It's
Yeah,
no problem.
Jean-Luc Picard.
Exactly. Make it
yeah.
so.
Yeah. Okay. I love this quote.
Yeah, so do I. So electric car sales plummet 37% in Germany as slump deepens. Why does the slump deepen? Because there's no money for subsidies. And the quote, well-off and eco-conscious buyers are more or less tapped out, and the industry's lack of affordable battery models is cutting mass market consumers out of the market. Color me
shocked.
Nobody could have possibly seen any of that coming.
Absolutely. We haven't talked about this at all over the past, 2-3 years?
Hey, David, do you want to bring up Tom Mumford's comment and read it? That thing is amazing.
Where is he? Okay, here we go. 9 months ago, this is from Tom Mumford. Hi, Tom. I posted this article with my comment regarding providing convenient power to electric vehicles. I was struck by the enormity of the challenge faced by putting in place the charging infrastructure necessitated by forcing EVs on the public in California. Quote, will require California to install at least 20 EV charging ports for every gas nozzle by 2035. Think how many millions that is. Oh my gosh. The number of EV ports stands at 94,000 now. There are about 110. Fuel nozzle. Okay, he's talking about gas station nozzles. There are about 110,000 fuel nozzles. So that number has to be about 2.2 million ports. Daunting.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yes, it is daunting. 2.2
and they have to be
million.
operational all the time, which they're never
And
operational
so
all the time.
what does that mean? That means you're going to have to build 5 million of them because of the horrible maintenance problems these EV charger ports have. Right?
Wow.
Half of them are always down. They're always.
Do we have enough
out of
copper?
order.
Maybe that's
And
why
yeah,
they
you
have to be in a ratio of 20-1 nozzle, because they break down so frequently.
Yeah.
And you want to have at least half a dozen operating while the others are down for repairs or something.
I think the numbers there are because it takes so long to charge versus being able to pump gas.
That too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not just that it takes so long to charge, but they break down very, very easily, even if people don't steal their copper wiring.
That's
Now,
the point Tammy
factories
made
and
about copper
copper
is huge.
theft.
Yeah.
And you need to build 30, so you have some sort of redundancy. It's insane.
The material cost. So we're supposed to be in this circular economy where we're making the best use of all of our resources so we don't overstress the earth and all this. And everything about this forced transition takes way more space. It uses up more of the earth's materials. It's so material intensive. Why are we doing this? And you can't tell me it's saving the planet.
It's not saving the planet, it's destroying the planet.
Yeah.
So we have to destroy the planet to save the climate, apparently. I don't know.
Right. Oh, hey.
I didn't know you had a picture of
These are
me.
mine.
Yeah, look at that bald looking head there. How did you get a picture of me?
Tell you what, and he's young too. That dude looks like he's about 40. He's already bald.
I knew you
anyway.
Like me.
That's what happens to you when you buy a hydrogen car. The stress makes you go bald. Drivers of hydrogen cars are annoyed at California, but they're suing Toyota. So it turns out that refueling your hydrogen-powered Toyota is every bit as frustrating and near impossible as it is to charge your electric vehicle. And people who have bought these Toyotas from Toyota dealerships on the promise made by car salesmen. Now, think about this. Car salesmen are promising these car buyers that there's hydrogen refueling stations all over the state, thanks to a program conducted by whom? The California state government. Okay. So in order to, I mean, think about, I have zero sympathy at all for these hydrogen car buyers, because in order to buy that car, they trusted a car salesman and the state government of California to make sure their driving experience was rosy and just right. So, I mean, these people deserve no sympathy whatsoever. They paid an exorbitant price for a hydrogen Toyota. They're finding out now it's damn near impossible to find a place to fill them up with hydrogen, and they're wondering why. And the reason is, this is the object lesson. Don't trust the car salesman or the state government of California. That's the object lesson here. Anyway, so hydrogen cars are just another fantasy that's doomed to fail in the United States.
Oh, but David, maybe it's because they just don't have any place to store the hydrogen. And I saw an article this morning where they want to repurpose salt caverns. So the salt caverns that they use for storing, oil, like an SPR, I guess they want an SHR, a strategic hydrogen reserve, and they're going to fill it in salt caverns.
Is this the same government that just destroyed the Northeastern strategic gasoline reserve so they can lower the price? Same government? I was just curious.
Yeah, and so I mean, on the point about salt caverns, so salt caverns can be reliably used to store natural gas and oil, which have much larger molecules than hydrogen does. Hydrogen is a little tiny molecule, and I don't know the answer to this, but of course, the reason you can't just repurpose natural gas pipelines to move hydrogen on is because of the tiny size of the molecules, and they'll leak all over the place and cause explosions. I just kind of wonder if salt caverns might have the same issue with containing hydrogen molecules. I don't know the answer to that, but if anyone out there watching or listening knows the answer, let us know. Second thing, Ørsted books new losses, flags delayed U.S. offshore wind project.
But it still soldiers on.
But it still soldiers on because it knows that if it asks strongly enough, the states of New Jersey and Massachusetts will give it more subsidies to keep building these boondoggles offshore U.S. Ørsted, this is like the second time Ørsted has had to book major charges related to its U.S. offshore wind projects. It's canceled and restarted 2 or 3 of the projects. And someone mentioned, I think it was Tammy mentioned a little bit ago, that about Shell and BP and other big oil companies pulling out of these biofuels ventures. Well, they're also pulling out of their offshore wind ventures, and Equinor too. And so why? Because they're not sound business models, and they require, and they will continue to require, ever increasing subsidies and higher power provision rates in order to stay afloat. And so that's not going to happen in the United States, and they're all going to fail. Robert De Domenico, strategic hydrogen initiative targets are shit. Yeah, that might get me banned by YouTube, but I agree with that.
I'm glad you hit that, Tammy. And hey, Brian, good morning.
Brian Zinchuk, awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Brian says, I love listening to you 4 on Monday mornings. It's so refreshing. Me too, Brian.
Me too. And Robert, sorry, Tom. Thank you.
Tom
I blame
climate change.
Robert again, a typical gas nozzle pumps about 10 megawatt power equivalent. No charger does that.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Power equivalent is big.
Yeah.
Robert, again, whatever you're on, I want 2 or 3.
He's on fire.
You're rolling, man. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. We have
you go, Stu.
Yes, I finally get a yay. I'm a somebody.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm done. Those are mine.
Let's go to, are EVs really climate friendly? No. I want to give Grok a shout out. I actually created this. I created this using Grok AI on X, and I asked it for, how does tires wear microplastics? And EVs, I hate to say this, are not climate friendly.
I don't believe you.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Whoa.
No.
It's just unbelievably. But I want to get to the next article, that can the West afford to build its own copper industry? Because if we need to go to an energy transition and electrify everything, we need to double the size of the grid in the next 10 years. We need more copper than we have on the planet. And the average copper mine in the U.S. takes about 20 years to get approved. So
Just
we're
to get
kind of,
approved. Yeah.
we're kind of screwed
Same in
around.
Canada. Yeah.
I use Grok on X to create the cover for this wonderful article that was written by Irina Slav for oilprice.com.
Oil price, yeah.
But they had a really cheesy thing on it. So I put this cover on it, and it's amazing. Is copper the Swiss Army knife? Yes, it is. We need it for everything.
Yeah.
And solar panels need copper cables to connect their inverters from there to the grid. Wind turbines need copper cables for the same reason. EVs need copper. The list goes on, and it's a long one. The world would need enormous amounts of copper while theoretically available, not actually available. Well said, Irina.
Yeah, I think the World Copper Association or Copper Council or something says that there is copper, but it has to be got out of the ground. And that's actually my coverage of the Wood-Mac report on copper that says no China, no transition. I mean, yeah.
Oh, no. Tom, we are not going to show this comment. We are not going to show this comment.
David did it.
You are a
correct,
scholar
David.
and a gentleman, Tom Mumford. That's
No,
all I
David,
can
you
say.
are not correct.
Oh, Brian has a good comment here. A copper mine in Minnesota was killed recently because, believe it or not, they said they couldn't cut down trees in Minnesota, and the whole state is covered in trees.
This is no justification to cut them down. You should let it stay covered in trees, but you can't have
because they're carbon sinks, and those trees are removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and so if you cut them down, will that copper be able to replace that ability to remove carbon dioxide?
This is a very interesting question, because it will be used in wind turbines and solar panels, solar installations that do not, in fact, remove CO2 from the
Unless you're using carbon capture techniques that take a lot of power from those wind turbines that you've just destroyed the earth. So it'd be easier
to do what a tree does.
It's like there are these people who are trying to get something without trading anything off. They have forgotten that there is always a trade-off. They want their cake and to eat it too.
And isn't the other point to make here that if that copper mine had instead been a proposed wind farm or copper or
they would have cut down the
farm,
trees.
no one would have objected to cutting down a single tree.
That's even
except in Quebec, because they didn't want this EV battery plant constructed because it would cut down the trees, and so they've been protesting.
Good for them. That's awesome.
Scotland is absolutely a horrific place. They've cut down 14 million trees for all their wind farms. And now they're trying to do interconnects around so they can supply power. And then the amount of diesel fuel that they're using to power those wind turbines so they can export the power. This is a mind-numbing experience.
Germany, I think, was going to cut down an ancient forest to put up wind turbines.
Yeah.
And now they're just putting the wind turbines in the forest, which I'm sure will.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, doesn't it?
But, you know, when I'm sitting here in my head, in my poor little feeble mind, this is what I really want to just kind of focus on this week instead of, and as we sit here and take a look.
Oh, look at that.
Just the two of us. We can
Okay.
make it if we try. Just the two of us.
Now this is
Just the two of
look
us.
at that dog. I'm sorry.
In the sky, just the two of us. You and I.
Oh,
Aw.
We make those
now, that was about as cool as it gets.
That
Where are
is
the
very
cats?
cool. I feel better.
The
already.
cats. Are you a cat lady? Are you a cat lady?
Yeah, we have 3 cats.
She's a cat lady. Haven't you seen her cat?
Well,
Yeah, Irina's a cat lady too. It's not
Yeah,
just me.
David's a cat lady.
I'm a cat lady too.
oh my gosh.
You're the
You're
only one who
outnumbered.
doesn't have a cat.
My cat was just up here a minute ago, but I don't see him now, or I would show him to you.
Okay, I'll do better next time. My apologies, guys. I did not mean no offense.
No, I like dogs too.
Okay. So, with that, what do we see coming around the corner? Oh, the NIMBY.
Nimbys are coming around the corner.
Issues related to NIMBY and bureaucratic red tape would have to be eliminated to get mining in the U.S. competitive.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, but that's not
They
going to
still
happen.
want to protect the environment.
Yeah.
But can I pull a NIMBY on my taxes and my and get not in my bank? You know,
Not in my backyard.
yeah, get out of my bank, you commie. Never mind. So with that, what do we have coming around the corner for this week, Irina?
Oh, I have no idea. Every next day is a surprise. I have no idea what the news feed will surprise me with.
Well, Tammy, what's going on in the UK that we can talk about without getting you thrown in jail?
It's a very good question.
Good question. Good question. I'm not sure what they're up to. I think they're kind of on holiday. But I'm paying attention to some stuff happening in Canada right now where Chevron just got $100 million subsidy to do a carbon capture project
Wow.
that I need to read a little bit more about and see what's going on.
Wow. David, what do you got coming around this week? You got
Spain
your-
and Portugal. I'm going on a cruise. I'll be back in
Woo!
3 weeks.
Wow. So we'll have to hold the fort down for you.
We'll
huh?
hold the fort. And he'll be stirring up trouble in Europe. Oh no.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I'm worried about getting extradited and arrested.
You know
No,
what?
you're going to Spain and Portugal. People are nice there.
Oh, I love, yeah.
Not
I'm in
going to
Spain.
the UK.
Hey, no, Spain has been protesting tourists, so
Yes, they
watch out
have,
for
yeah.
protesters.
Yeah, we've been warned about that, but I think we'll be fine.
So are you going to wear EVs are terrible shirt? Or are you
I
gonna,
love
like,
solar.
I love solar. I love wind.
In Spain. I love solar.
No. So with that, I think we're going to be having a lot of fun watching the Democrats throw bricks at each other and
Yeah.
avoiding donkeypox.
It is going to be awesome. Yes.
I mean, monkeypox, donkeypox, monkeypox,
Mpox.
mpox.
We can't say monkey anymore for some reason.
Just like,
I
yeah,
still
you
think
could
it's
call
a
it the
donkey.
Wuhan virus.
It's a donkeypox as far as I'm concerned.
A pox of donkeys.
There we go. Anyway, have a good
Uh-oh.
one, guys.
Whoops, we lost Irina.
We lost Irina.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all. Have a
Okay,
great week.
bye. Have a great week.